In the meantime, I got appointed as a sort of a student assistant. My pay was £9 something a month, and I assisted with all the practical work, first year, second year, third work, by laying out everything that has got to be laid out on the checklist and assembling again and putting back where it should be in the various laboratory shelves. And then I got roped into the Gestetner room with the old wax sheets, because Stellenbosch was very early on followed the line where the lectures were prepared for all the years, printed, and then handed out as the students come to the class at that stage, first, second, third year, doesn't matter. You hand out next week's notes. And the notes for today's were handed out last week, and it's only open for discussion today. It's not dictation where you've got to write down the stuff. So I got in and I started, and that's how I landed in July 1948. And it was a very big decision for me to take, to go to Bloemfontein and assist the meeting, because I've been doing all the printing work at Stellenbosch, the preparatory work for actually what eventually amounted to the establishment of the South African Psychological Association, SAPA, and Bloemfontein. Now, the background to SAPA, that early in 1948, there was a movement on the medical societies part, wanting to have a degree or diploma introduced, diploma in psychological medicine, that will give any MBCHB medical man 120 hours of psychology, which will qualify him with a diploma in psychological medicine, which will allow him to practice, to assist the neurologist and the psychiatrist. That was the sort of third leg of what they wanted to do. The psychology departments were cut out of this preparatory thing, but they got hold of all the background information that was circulating, and it was a meeting caused by the movement on the medical side that brought all the psychologist departments together at Bloemfontein. My big decision was not to go on tour with the Stellenbosch Boerorkest, but rather to go and assist and be the office jockey for this. Well, I got paid for it. And I stayed with an old aunt of mine in Bloemfontein. But that's where the psychology first became an organized body in the country. Present at that meeting was Professor I.D. McCrone of Wits, Professor Pratt Yule of Natal, Professor Jantjies van Rensburg of Stellenbosch, Professor Atle Gransie of Pretoria, Professor Hall, Cape Town, I think it was Hall, of Cape Town, Dr. Simon Bishel from the Air Force Testing Center, whatever it was called in those days. And that's where the South African Psychological Association was established and formed, with the work decision or the program is to stop the medical people from literally hijacking psychology for their own purposes. Now, I qualified eventually, BA. I walked out of the theological seminary, went back to the psychology department, and continued with the honors degree. At that moment, Stellenbosch had the split between general psychology into educational psychology, psychopathology, and industrial psychology. And I, together with Appels van Aarde, who later became professor of educational psychology at Port Elizabeth University, we were the first two to enroll in the psychopathology leg of specialization. And Professor A.B. van der Merwe, who had an MA psychology and who went and who had his MBCHB from Cape Town, he was appointed as the professor to establish and to build up the psychopathology section. There was a lot of protest from the medical side about the title of that, a psychopathology, on the basis that pathology is a word that belongs to the medical and not to the psychological field. So they wanted to have the name changed. When the name was suggested, eventually clinical psychology, the same protest came that said clinical is a word belonging in the medical side, not in the psychology side.